Morning, good afternoon, or good evening. We are coming in for another episode of Rise, and we are going to start this one in just 3 minutes from now. If you're coming into this episode, I would love to know about the comments. Let us know that you're here. Let us know that you're coming in and you're getting your juices flowing for this beautiful Friday morning or Thursday afternoon for you. I just had to check the time and make sure I'm on the right day because I'm losing track. But coming to you here from, where are we? LA in California, and it is freezing actually. So we come down here expecting a little bit of warm weather, but it's escaping us. But you know what? We shape the weather inside our minds. That's what we say. How's it going, guys? Good morning. If you do watch this one on repeat, please make sure that you hashtag replay in the comments so that we know you've been here and you've ready to rock and roll. This is going to be I think a simple episode, but a thought-provoking episode today to round out this week. So to those of you that are in, obviously, our client group, we're in what is now the end of week 3 of Mad for May. So well done to the guys that are doubling down. Remember, there's over $1,000 of prize giveaways, including a couple of pairs of trainers for the winners. We've got a couple of dinner vouchers, a little bit of merch to spread across the fruits of our labor. So it's going to be good. It's going to be nice. And so at the end of next week, obviously, we'll bring to a close that incentive. Guys, we're starting in 1 minute and we're ready to rock and roll. Hello, Tez. Good morning, my man. How are you, my friend? Lovely to have your company in here this morning. Of course, the regulars are all here. Hello, Hayes. How are you, mate? Kenny's in here as well. Good morning, Tez. Kenny, how's it going, guys? Hello, Nikki, friend. How are you, my friend? I hope you're having a good morning. Lauren Taylor's in here, as predictable as ever. Hello, Woz. Mate, you're getting good at this. JC Nyes, what's happening, mate? Lovely to have your company in here, buddy, and good stuff on your whole family changing their thing, right? Between yourself and Krellin and your cousins. So we're really well done. Hello, Ash. Good morning, Ash. I hope you're well. Ash, can you say hi to your sexy man for us? We haven't seen him around the Academy Traps for a while, mate. I hope he's doing well. All right, guys, we're going to get started, I think. Let's bring this one in. It's going to be another episode of Rise kicking off now. Okay, so what we want to talk about today is this one thing that predicts people's success. I want to read out a couple of quotes. Number 1, success is actually a short race, a sprint fueled by discipline just for long enough for habit to kick in and take over. Oh, I love that so much. A sprint fueled by discipline just long enough for habit to kick in and take over. The next quote, don't give up on what you want most for what you want now. And this might lead into today's subject matter, which is a topic that I've kind of wanted to talk about for a little bit. And I think it's a great idea to start this episode with an insight to a study that you may have heard of before. The study is colloquially referred to as the marshmallow experiment. Okay? So what happened was, in the university, brought a bunch of kids in. This was like way back in the 1900s, late 1900s. What they would do is they would sit a bunch of kids in a room. And then the researchers would leave the room and they would tell the kids, if you can wait until I get back, I'm going to give you 2 marshmallows. But if you eat this one that I'm about to put in front of you before I get back, you won't get the second marshmallow. Let us know if you've actually heard of this experiment. It's like super, super well documented. And if you go on YouTube, you can actually see some videos about it. And so if the child decided to eat the marshmallow before the researchers returned, they wouldn't get the second marshmallow. And so in this experiment, you're seeing all these kids like bouncing up and down and like scratching and trying to distract themselves in different ways so that they could delay eating and obviously wait till the researchers come back so they get 2. Maybe this is something that a trick that you should play on your kids to test their level. What they did is for the next 30 to 40 years, they followed up on the kids from this experiment. Of course, a lot of the kids caved, right? They couldn't handle the temptation. So they ate the marshmallow and they didn't get the second one. A lot of the kids were able to fight their way through it and delay the gratification, and they got the marshmallow and then another one for free. And what they found is in the follow-up studies of these kids, the kids that were able to delay the gratification and wait to receive the second marshmallow ended up with just completely different outcomes later in life. Higher school testing scores, lower levels of substance abuse, lower levels of obesity, better responses to stress, better social skills. Basically, right across all of life, the ones that are able to delay eating the marshmallow were found to be in later life better at a ton of different metrics. So what does this have to do with us being able to manage our weight? Well, most of us are here in this academy or trying to start a transformation because we want some level of happiness and freedom in our life, right? And this is in part predicted by how we stack up in the areas of our health, our wealth, and relationships, which contribute to our happiness and our freedom. We become wealthy in these areas if we stop spending money and time on shit that doesn't benefit us, despite the momentary pleasure that it might bring. Have you ever looked around your house and realized just how much you're strangled by junk? Stuff that you bought that maybe you thought might make you feel better or look better, but now it's just kind of junk. And living in Cord's house, like it's just mental how much I see that. You got to ask yourself, is that an indication of your past impulsiveness in buying things that maybe you don't actually need? As a simple observation you might make, is it that getting yourself out of shape is a product of successive, detrimental, short-term choices? That's not to say that the choices are somewhat not justified, and I'll give you some examples in a minute. But is it possible that that's been the reason? Successive, detrimental, short-term decisions as opposed to what would be a good long-term choice. And the reason I'm saying, in a way, it's justified is the man or woman that is so deplete from a crazy work schedule and chooses to drink a couple of wines after work to numb themselves. There's a short-term pleasure that's involved in that, but it's often at the detriment of their long-term pain, but completely justified, right? Or the single parent that finally gets their kids to bed after hours of trying, and this was us last night, and then finds themselves, finally when they get some time to themselves, knee-deep in a tub of ice cream. Short-term pleasure, but not really for long-term gain. Can we all agree here that in order to get some level of success, you must be able to postpone, like the kids in the marshmallow experiment, some immediate pleasure? Now, I think it'd be a great conversation to just touch on here the difference between happiness and pleasure. For me, when I started to understand the difference between happiness and pleasure, it allowed me to make better decisions. Most worthwhile things in our life, they need to be earned. The longer and harder they take to earn, it seems like the more fulfilling they are. Creating a successful career or business, like getting in shape, building excellent relationships with your partners, these things require discipline, and that's bloody hard work, especially when you get no reward up front, right? Often, actually, it's the opposite. You think about going to the gym and you get sore and it's like tough and you get tired, actually. And so it's hard to keep on it. The differences between pleasure and happiness might be as such. Pleasure is typically short-lived, whereas happiness is long-lived. Pleasure can be achieved with substances. Happiness can't. Pleasure is always dependent on external factors. Happiness can involve external factors, such as another person, but is not dependent on them. Chemically, pleasure is tied to a compound called dopamine, which we've heard before, whereas happiness tends to be tied to a compound called serotonin. So there's actually significant differences between pleasure and happiness. And it's not that all pleasure is bad, but chasing it, thinking it will make you happy is. Love in the comments some examples of some things that for you are pleasurable. Like, get down into the comments, guys. What's pleasurable for you, despite the fact that you know that it doesn't actually cause happiness, like centered happiness, but it's pleasurable. Let's discuss an example. And like, this is coming off maybe the back of my post there last night. No one ever said that porn made them happy, right? Porn gave us short-term pleasure. It gives us short-term pleasure, but it doesn't last. I guess reaching a depth of understanding and love with your partner is the sort of thing that can provide happiness. It isn't just sex-based. So in any relationship, there's going to be ups and downs. And one of the challenges of a relationship is delaying what would be pleasurable, like more porn, more alcohol, cheating for a one-night stand with someone sexy at work, instead of delaying that gratification and being patient while you work on the relationship. If you do this, the chances of you creating a great relationship which brings you happiness shoot. So what we're talking about here is we're talking about sacrifice. And as parents, we understand our moral obligation to try to get rid of suffering for our kids. So we'll sacrifice for them. We'll go to work, we'll pay through the teeth for daycare, we'll run around crazy. And the trade-off here is that we often run ourselves into the ground and we become the sacrificial lamb. Like, hands up if that's been you for a period. It's super important that you recognize that when you're using your kids as an excuse for rather than a motivation to be better. That's not good for you or your kids. And no kid is ever gonna want to be told in 20 years' time that mummy or daddy died at 60 because they spent all their time worrying about your best interests. Think about it. Your kids aren't gonna want to hear that. So when it comes to parenting, it's a balancing act, right? You're always weighing up against the sacrifices in the short term and what's best. Just because you have no time for the gym today, however, doesn't mean that you should go home and eat 3 tubs of ice cream or a whole packet of Tim Tams. If you're always sacrificing, you become the sacrifice. This is a great phrase. If you're always sacrificing, you become the sacrifice. Now, to wind this pot up, let's loop back around to the process of transformation. A few more points on delaying gratification and committing to the long term. For those of you that are in the challenge, you need to delay the constant desire for shiny objects. Like jumping challenge to challenge. There's so many challenge hoppers. You keep jumping to challenges, but nothing changes unless you commit for a 6 to 12 month period to work on yourself. Towards the end of this challenge, I guess you should be asking yourself a question as an example. Can I do this on my own? And guess what? If you can do it on your own, then you don't need a coach. You can do it on your own. The vast majority of people cannot do it on their own, myself included. I can't do it on my own, which is why I've had a coach for the last 3 years consistently. If the answer is no, I can't do this on my own, then the answer is literally in front of you. Be willing to do the hard thing for the next 6 to 12 months to get the good thing for the rest of your life. Taking away, shortcuts taking shortcuts always turns out to be the long cut, because actually you waste more time in the long term repeatedly making mistakes. And the truth is, success is not sexy. Like, you see these wankers like throwing stuff up on social media, and it's just not that sexy actually. It involves delaying gratification and doing the boring things until they actually start to compound. That's the truth of it. Well, at least from what I've seen in the successful people in my life. People spend their whole life trying to get motivated and instead of developing the character trait of being disciplined. Being disciplined means you are capable of making sacrifices. Like, tattoo that on the back of your eyes. Being disciplined means you are capable of making sacrifices. Being disciplined means doing the things that you don't want to do. And guess what? Winning at life is more about doing the things that you don't feel like doing than it is the things that you feel like doing. And when you get this habit trait of discipline, of delaying gratification, what does that do? It builds self-control, which improves your confidence. When you say the thing and then do the thing, that builds self-belief. And if you watch yesterday's Rise episode, you'll understand just how critical self-belief is. If you don't believe in yourself, you got nothing. Like, you're going to become a crumbling mess. To finish off, this weekend is a great experiment. It's a great experiment, a great opportunity to experiment. You've got the training now on the importance of delayed gratification. So observing yourself this weekend, ask yourself, what pleasures am I pulled towards? Like, keep your awareness and ask yourself, what pleasures am I being pulled towards that are not in alignment with my goal of more money, more health, better relationships? What temptations am I being pulled towards this weekend that are not in alignment with my goal? Pleasure is fine. Like a couple of low-calorie beers, a few glasses of wine, that's fine. But the mistake that so many people make is they undo all of the good work that they've done all week in 2 days. It's like so obvious. So you got to ask yourself, is that thing actually a priority? And if that thing is a priority, then maybe it's time to start making some sacrifices in the short term, delaying gratification, and understanding that this is a long game and you will make it if you're willing to be the kid in the room that waits for the researcher to get back and gets 2 marshmallows instead of the kid that eats quickly, gets 1, and lives by that mantra their entire life. Like, the study showed the downline effects of delaying gratification. And if you can do the same thing, the results are predictable. Guys, I hope this episode's been beneficial. This brings to a conclusion the 3rd week of Rise. We'll be back next week with the final installment of 5 Rise episodes next week. I hope you guys have a beautiful weekend. Love you. Thanks for coming in. Hopefully it's helped. We'll chat soon.